Hi, friends. It's Mitzi. Welcome back to the Blessings Podcast. I fell down and hit my head this weekend, and I want to talk about it. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm totally recovered now, but I'll tell you what, it was very scary. It was terrifying. And I know a lot of you out there have fallen and know people who have fallen. And you don't really think about how serious this is until it happens to you. I was walking down the street, down the sidewalk, to put money in a parking meter. And I was not looking at my feet, which I guess you don't really look at your feet when you're walking, but there must have been an uneven spot on the sidewalk, and I started to stumble. And I could feel myself going down, but since I have never fallen like that before, I believed that I could catch myself. So it was like it was happening in slow motion. I could feel my feet trying to get their footing, and I actually remember taking 2 steps and then a 3rd step when I had the realization that I was not going to be able to recover, and I knew that I was going to fall. Mind you, this is probably happening within a split second, but my thoughts were slowed down. And I looked out and saw there was a man who was parked in the car behind mine. I had made it to my car. I just didn't make it to the meter, unfortunately. And he saw me about to fall. And he had a look on his face of horror. He started to run, and it all hit me in that moment. You're in trouble, Mitzi. You are going to fall. So I fell hard. I fell, thankfully, on my side, but I could not keep my head straight. So normally when you fall, you can catch yourself. You can make your way into a position that can block you from hurting the most precious parts of your body. And we naturally do this. But my head was very vulnerable, and it was just like a bobble on the top of my neck, and it slammed into the sidewalk. I don't know if you've ever heard the sound of a head hitting concrete before, and I hope that you never have to hear that sound because it was a horrifying sound. My head bounced, thankfully. So it really only hit for a second. And later I figured out that my body had taken the bulk of the fall. But it was terrible. And I didn't know if I was hurt, because sometimes when you immediately hurt yourself, you don't really know at first what the extent of the damage is, because you know you're going to be in some kind of a shock state. And this can mask the symptoms of whatever damage has been caused. So this man who was parked behind me came running over immediately. He was there probably when I hit the ground. He was already there. He sat down on the ground next to me. I sat up, and I was just in shock, trying to assess, because my first thought was, I am really hurt. I first thought was like, I'm fucked. I'm really hurt. Like I just hurt my head. And I thought to myself, I'm going to have to go to the hospital. I don't know if I'm going to be okay. I mean, my thoughts just spiraled. I do not do well under situations where there is a health issue related to myself, because I have health anxiety. I know this is one of my issues. I'm working to overcome it. But in that moment, there was nothing I could do. My nervous system took over. I was in fight or flight. And so this guy sat next to me. He put his arm around me immediately, and he was staring at me, like trying to see if I was hurt, trying to hear if I could speak and what was happening. And he was asking me, are you okay? And I said, I don't know, because I didn't know. And I had to sit there for a minute and talk with him, and we were talking through it. I don't remember exactly what words we were saying, but I know he was trying to keep me talking. And I realized enough to think, I need to keep myself clear. I need to work through this. I felt dizzy, but I knew that I wasn't going to pass out. So I felt a little better about that, but I definitely had pain in my head. I knew that I had hit my head, and because I had heard the sound, I was like really worried about that. I didn't even think about whether I might be bleeding, and I didn't feel any blood, so I knew I wasn't bleeding. I did not, thankfully, crack my head open, which, thank God, because that was my worst fear. But I was really worried about the invisible damage that I know can happen with a head injury. So I sat there sitting on the ground in about 10 degrees cold, talking to this man and trying to get myself together and figure out if I was okay. I have never experienced anything like this before. And I think the first thing that went through my mind was, I wish I could just turn back the clock by 2 minutes. I wish I could just make this so it never happened. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but especially when there's something like that, like a serious situation, an emergency situation where you're like, oh, if only this hadn't happened. And so I'm sitting there with this man, and I realized that I hadn't put money in the meter. So I remember saying, I need to put money in my meter, but I lost my quarters. And he popped up, he put money in the meter and sat right back down with me. And he said, I took care of it. Don't worry about that. Let's make sure you're okay. He was an angel. There is no doubt about it. What are the chances that there would be somebody there in that second when I hit the ground? I don't believe that's a coincidence. But the whole time I was down there on the ground talking to this guy, I realized my eyes were closed. I had closed my eyes, I think instinctively, and I didn't really get a good look at him. So I opened my eyes and I turned to look in his face. He was right there next to me, like within 2 inches of my face. And he was staring so intently at me with the look of genuine care and concern. It moved me so much, but I didn't really have the presence of mind to get emotional about it. I really was just thinking, what am I going to do? What should I do? What's the best thing to do to make sure I'm okay? I took note of the way he looked. He was a very pleasant looking, normal looking dude. He was wearing a beanie hat. He was probably in about his mid-30s. He had a reddish brown kind of beard and very big blue eyes and like a round kind of face. Just very pleasant, very warm looking person, very friendly, obviously. He was just so amazing in that moment, the way he just came right to me. So I remember thinking, where's my purse? Of course, we women, we think that, right? So I grabbed my purse. I can't even believe I had this open purse. It had no zipper, no top. It's like a mini tote bag, like a mini LL Bean tote bag. Nothing fell out of the thing. I don't know how I managed to that, but nothing fell out of my purse unless the guy put things back in, but I don't think so. I think it was intact. Anyway, I realized I was okay. And my next thought was like, I have to get back to my friends. I was coming from a store. It was a birthday event in a store right in the downtown area. And I was around the corner. So there was no people except for me and this guy. And I wanted to just get back in to the store, and I wanted to call my partner, Jonathan. So I just said, I'm okay. I'm going to go and go gather myself back where my friends are. I don't even know what I said, but it wasn't that articulate. It was probably something like, okay, I think I'm all right. I'm going to go. And I just stood up and started walking away, and I just left. And I actually, this is so funny. It's the people pleaser in me. I actually feel bad about that I got up and just left this guy. But I just didn't have the presence of mind. I thanked him a million times. He was definitely aware that I was appreciative. Anyway, I end up getting back to the store. I end up calling Jonathan, and I get in the store and tell them I fell, and everybody in the store, there was 3 or 4 people, they just came rushing over with ice packs, got me sitting down on a couch. There was a nurse practitioner there who checked me out, checked my pupils, checked me for signs of concussion or trauma injury, and I seemed fine. I was very beaten up and very shaken up and very afraid in terms of like my shock response. So I was shaking, and that's what happens when I get super, super nervous about something. I shake. My body shakes. I have no control over it. Shaking. And I know I wasn't making a lot of sense. I was trying to get my thoughts clear, and I wasn't making sense, but it wasn't like brain injury not making sense. It was just more like shock response. So I was still able to think somewhat clearly. And the weirdest thing is when I got back into the store, I am trying to communicate with Jonathan to figure out what to do. Do I need to go to the ER? I'm talking to the women in the store. Should I go and get a scan? If I get a scan, they're going to want to scan me with the radiation scan, which I don't want. I would rather have an MRI, but they're not going to do that. And we go through this whole rigmarole of the healthcare system and like how I would lose control of my care if I went in to the ER. And so I'm really weighing that. Do I want treatments that I wouldn't normally consent to? Is it worth the risk? Am I okay? Really, I was trying to determine. And I had a genuine medical professional there telling me that she thought I was okay. And I'm on Chat GPT. I'm starting to ask questions about it. And actually, Chat GPT actually does a very good job of assessing you. I'm not saying you should rely on AI medical treatment. This is not condoning that at all. I'm just saying. And so in that moment, when I got back to the store, I'm in my phone just telling Jonathan, let me get myself together and I'll figure out what I'm going to do. And he is getting dressed, ready to come and meet me. And then a text comes in, and it's from my sister. And it says that she had a gift for Jonathan from Christmas that she had exchanged. She had the new size in the shirt that she exchanged, and she wants to know if she could drop it off. So I text her back and I say, that's great, thank you, but right now I am in this store in over downtown and I fell down and hit my head and I'm honestly not sure if I'm okay. And she immediately responds, where are you? So I give her the name of the store and she says, I'm coming. And that was it. And I can't tell you the sense of relief, even though these women in the store were wonderful and they're definitely kind people and my friends, but it's not the same as your sister. It's not the same as your family. And my sister and I both lost our mom, as if you've been following me, in 2001. And so we take care of each other. Sisters are sisters. We have our issues, but we also are our number one supporter, our number one fan in all situations. And to know that my sister didn't even ask any questions, she just said, I'm coming. And less than 10 minutes later, she was there. She walked in the door and she was like, okay, let's go. We're going to go back to my house. And we made arrangements for my car. She talked to everybody. She took me back to her house. She sat me down on the couch, covered me up with a blanket, made me a cup of tea, had ice packs on me. And I felt like a little girl back in my home living room. It was so comfortable and I felt so well cared for and so loved. And it's just a feeling. I know you know that feeling, but I haven't felt that feeling in a long time. And as I was going over this, I figured out what that feeling is. It's the feeling of being mothered. And since my sister and I don't have a mother anymore, we'll always have a mother, but she's not in physical form. And that's hard. And so the feeling of being mothered is something that I have missed and didn't realize how much I had missed it. I didn't even realize what it felt like to be mothered. And to be taken care of by my sister is the closest thing I'll ever have again in my life to being mothered. And I cherish that. Crazy how much I cherish that and how much I realized it in that moment, how much that meant to me. I can't even express. So there were a lot of interesting spiritual things that came about as a result of this fall. And if you're getting my newsletter, I talked about it a little bit and I said I would expand here in the podcast. So that's what I'm doing now. If you're not on my email list, please get on there, mitzicampbell.com/newsletter, because I have a lot of great things to share in there as well. I also started posting on Substack, which I'll put a link to in the show notes if you're interested. I write longer, more interesting, deep, profound essay type things on there because I feel like I need to express myself sometimes in long form. Anyway, back to the story. So spiritual things, right? First of all, I think this whole situation was orchestrated by my mother's spirit, by my mom, because my sister and I hadn't really talked in a few weeks. We'd had a little bit of a tiff, nothing big, but there was tension, right? And I think it was my mom pushing us together. I think it was all about my mom. What are the chances my sister would text me in that second that I was hurt? It was not a coincidence, just like the guy who was an angel helping me. None of it was a coincidence. And one of the reasons why I know that it was my mom, and you can call me crazy, but I still will believe it, regardless of what you think. And I know if you're listening to me, you're on board because you're a spiritual person too. But when I was with my sister, she told me that she had a experience where she felt like my mom had come to her with a message. And she doesn't normally have those kinds of experiences. She's not like me. She's not like as deeply spiritual as me. So she was surprised by the experience. It just came. And she told me about it. And she said the message, which I think was also meant for me, was everything is okay. She said she saw my mom's face. She said she heard my mom's voice. And I don't know if you still have your mother, but if you are lucky enough to have your mother's voice, to know what that sounds like. And I'll never forget the sound of my mother's voice. I can hear it right now. It's with me. But to actually hear it again would be like such an amazing treasure. I would just love to hear it again in reality. And I could hear it in my dreams sometimes. And I have it in my mind. Like I know the voice. But she heard the voice. And I really believe that this whole situation of me falling, especially since I wasn't really hurt, I was hurt, but not seriously hurt, was all about my mom getting us together. So I also wanted to share with you a couple of things I did to help with my health anxiety when I was going through this. Listen, I wasn't rational. If you were with me during that, you'd have been like, who is this woman? She is not here. She is not right. She has not got it together. And I will be the first one to admit I do not hold up well under crisis situations, especially when it involves my own health. My mind just goes to a really dark place, and I am working actively to overcome that because I have an awareness of it. I know it's not rational. And I kept thinking when this was happening about Natasha Richardson and the horrible story of her falling down during a skiing trip and hitting her head and thinking she was okay. And then a couple hours later, she was no longer with us because she had a brain bleed. And I kept thinking about that. And I kept thinking, what will my children do if I pass? How will they be? Will they be okay? How will they handle it? And I almost in that moment let go of control. I was like, there's really nothing I can do. Like it's done. I can't turn back the clock. I can't unhit my head on the sidewalk, even though I wish I could. And I just had to give that up, give that over to God. I had to give it up. I could not control. And I think that's one of the lessons. Things happen. We can't always control everything all the time. Obviously, there was a lesson here for me in slowing down, because we know when the universe gives you a situation where it forces you to slow down, it's because you're being told to slow down. You should listen. So I'm listening to that. I know I need to find more rest and find more inspiration in rest and take time for rest to inform my creativity and where I want to be, that I don't need to be pushing and hustling and doing all the time. And that's a recurring kind of lesson for me. So all of those things, all of those lessons, those blessings, and I do believe they're both blessings and lessons, because the blessing in this situation of me falling was that I got to experience that absolutely beautiful feeling of being mothered. And I got a lot of beautiful reminders about my mom. And oh, by the way, it was her birthday. It was my mom's birthday. And that's another reason I know that this had something to do with her. So 2 things I did in particular to help me with the health anxiety. One, I had to just let it move through me. The shaking, physical symptoms of anxiety are real. There's not too much you can do about them other than to just allow yourself to be comforted and to allow the time for it to pass. You have to move through it. So there was that. I do think doing some little bit of Googling online, a little bit of chat GPTing to reassure myself that I was not in immediate danger was also very helpful. Knowing that there was a nurse there telling me I was not in immediate danger. And also I took pictures of my pupils several times. I had people shine a light to make sure they were responding. So I had the wherewithal to check these medical things that I already knew. So I did advocate for myself in that way medically, which was also very helpful for my health anxiety. And these are things I know I have to do. But there were 2 other things I did that I want to suggest to you if you're in a situation where you are overcome with stress and need to calm down. The first thing that I did was some muscle testing. And I did this kind of in private because people, I don't know if everybody buys into it. And honestly, it was for me. So I did this muscle testing by looping my forefinger and thumb together and on both hands, and then making a little link, a little chain. And then what you do is you ask yourself a question and you pull on your fingers. And if you hold the strength, then the answer is yes. If your chain breaks and you don't hold the links, then the answer is no. So I ask myself a question. Am I okay? Yes. I do the muscle testing. Yes, I'm okay. Am I in danger? No. Do I have a brain bleed? No. And then I went through some questions that were just immediately top of mind. Very reassuring, because you won't lie to yourself. That's the premise behind muscle testing. Your subconscious won't allow your body to remain strong in a position of muscle testing. So anyway, more on muscle testing and another thing. And it's not confirmed science, but a lot of alternative practitioners use it. I happen to find it useful, especially in situations where there's anxiety and I just need to make myself feel better. Who cares if it's true or not? It's making me feel better. It's a placebo in that case. And the placebo is just as strong as the medicine. So the other thing that I did that is actually does have a lot of scientific basis is a breathing technique. And I had just read this, so I was already aware that a way of calming yourself down when you have anxiety is to do a breathing technique where you breathe in and then you hold your breath and then you make your exhale longer than the inhale. So I breathed in for 4 counts. I held it for 2 or 3 counts. And then I exhaled for 6 or 7 counts. And I did this several times and it worked like a charm. And I just had to keep repeating these things. It's not one time is going to do the trick especially if you're extremely anxious. Like I was in shock. So I did this several times over and it actually worked so well. So eventually I was probably at my sister's for a couple of hours, to be honest. And then I made arrangements with Jonathan. He came over and we ended up being able to go home. I was able to drive and everything was fine. And it ended up that when I got home, I took some arnica, which helps with bruising and inflammation. I still had the ice packs on. And I took some Tylenol, which is what you're supposed to take if you suspect a brain or head injury type of thing, because it doesn't thin the blood. So I take it in moderation. I took 2 and it helped immediately. I felt better. I felt more comforted. And then the other thing I did too, which this is another one for your central nervous system and feeling calm, just let someone hold you. I call it cloaking. And when you can have a person, like in my case, it was my partner, Jonathan, just put their arms around you and hold you close and feel the warmth of another person's body, cloaking. It's extremely effective because you get to tie into their calmness, their feeling of like regulation and balance. And it's super, super effective. So those are all things that I did that helped me. And then the next day when I woke up, I was extremely sore. I was bruised on my arm and my shoulder. I thankfully did not have any broken ribs. I felt it a lot in my rib cage, and I think I had bruised that area, but it wasn't physically bruised on the outside, and I know the arnica helped a lot with that as well. But the only bruises were on my arm and on my palm, the palm of my hand, because I must have used that to cushion my fall as well. Thank God, because my head did not take as much of the fall as I feared. And I do have a bump on my head, but it didn't bruise and it feels okay. Still, after 48 hours as I'm recording this, if I get up too fast, I do feel a little bit of a headache, I would say, but it goes away. So I'm not worried about it. I think I'm fine. But I wanted to just put this on your radar because I think about people I know who've fallen. I know some older people who've fallen and broken bones, like their hip, and it's life ending for some people. It actually is like the last thing that causes them to lose hope or causes them to not be able to recover their mobility. Falling is a big deal, and anybody can fall at any age, but especially when you get older, you're susceptible. Thank God I don't think I have any type of bone density issues because I didn't break anything. I was totally fine. Thank God for that. Thank God for so many things. I'm so grateful for so many things. And it's interesting how an experience like this can cause you to be grateful. I'm not complaining that I fell. I'm grateful that I fell the way I fell and that I got to experience the best of humanity in my falling. I had so many people caring for me that day. It was so heartwarming. And it got me to just take a look at people in a beautiful light. And sometimes we need that, especially when there's darkness and we have all kinds of outside forces calling us to pay attention to the darkness. We need to pay attention to the light. It's the light that heals us. It's the light that sustains us, not the darkness. So I want to end with just talking about this famous Japanese proverb that, of course, came to mind as I was going over this whole situation in my mind and doing some journaling about it. It's the proverb, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And I realized that I'm not defined by how many times life knocks me down. And trust me, it has knocked me down before. With my health challenges over the past several years that I've overcome, this challenge from falling down, I overcome so quickly. I got back up like immediately. And that's funny now. And this is just coming to me now as I'm saying this, like with the guy and how shocked he must have been that I just stood up and walked away. I got back up so quickly. That's a beautiful thing. That's what the proverb means. You get up, you rise one more time than you fail all the time. And you can fail as many times as you want. You fail forward. How many times have you failed? Have you failed enough? In fact, I was going to do another show about that. I think I will. Have you failed enough is the question. So resilience and grit and sustenance and health and wellness and fitness and abundance and gratitude and all of that stuff is about getting back up. It's not about never struggling. It's not about never having bad things happen. It's not ever emergency situations or challenges in your life. It's about outlasting the struggle. It's about overcoming the challenges. It's about what you do in the face of them. It's about teaching you to get better. Like with my health anxiety, I just got a beautiful opportunity to work on that. How can I work on it if I don't experience it? How can you work on fixing something about yourself if you don't get to experience it? That's why difficult things happen to you, because there are opportunities to learn. There are opportunities to overcome. There are opportunities to fix, to correct, to get better. So every time you fall down, you get back up. Every post that you make that flops, every offer that you make to somebody that doesn't convert, every life pivot that you try to make that doesn't work out the way you want, every decision you make that doesn't go the way that you plan, every dream you have that doesn't come true fast enough, just keep standing up. Just keep showing up. Not louder, just longer. Because that's how people win. That's how we get to see the best in others and the best in ourselves. Thank you for listening. I am so grateful for all the people that helped me. So if you're one of them, thank you so much. You can't possibly imagine how much it meant to me. All of the people who rallied to help me that day. Thank you. You're listening to the Blessings Podcast by Mitzi Campbell, the founder of Your Positive Moment Daily Motivational Text Messages. You can get a morning message that uplifts you and adds something beautiful to your morning ritual at yourpositivemoment.com.